Very excited to welcome Tron Black, who is the lead developer of Ravencoin, which is an early stage crypto asset. And that's what we're looking at in the middle of the crypto winter, early stage undiscovered crypto gems. Welcome, Tron.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So I want to dive through the tokenomics, adoption, everything about this asset. You are obviously the best person to ask. So first up, could you just let us know what Ravencoin does?
Sure. Yeah. So its main purpose is to be a platform for issuing your own token. So people are probably familiar with ERC20, things like that. There's reasons that Ravencoin allows you to create the token easier, faster, more reliably with better metadata and things like that. So that's kind of its main purpose. That was what it was built for. And there were stages to that, but those are all complete and we're going strong.
Very good. Okay, so it has technology. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of demand for people that want to create digital assets. So strong futuristic potential there. The question is it being adopted? Are people using it currently to make coins?
So people are doing creating tokens that represent real estate, that represents like gift card type things, wine that's not ready to drink that you can redeem later, a stable coin based on the euro. Different things. So there's lots. I mean, there's lots and lots. I mean, tens of things, 70,000, something like that, tokens that have been created on top of it. Many of them are just reserving the name because it has a DNS-like system built in. So if you reserve the name, so a lot of them are for that. And then a lot of actual kind of live projects that are out there now.
Well, I really appreciate you giving us that number. I love that. That's hard. That's a cold hard fact. 70,000 potential tokens on this asset. Okay, very exciting. That is a lot. Do people have to pay anything for those?
Yes. So 500 Raven are burned to create a root asset. So a root asset has a unique name in the namespace. So if you think like .com, right? There's only so many names, and so that root name, 100 Raven. Now, if you create, 500 Raven, and those are burned. So those Raven are gone from the, so you mentioned tokenomics. Those Raven are gone, burned to a visible address, an address that you can view and see how many are burned, but they're gone because they're in an unspendable address. If you create a sub asset, which is under your name, you can create subnames. And you get the entire namespace of that, right? So you could reserve a main name and let other people. An example I usually use is, let's say, an art studio could let artists reserve their own names within that. And then within that, each artist would have the ability to create their own NFTs under that, for example. So it has kind of this multi-tiered thing. Sub assets are 100 Raven burned, and NFTs are 5 Raven burned.
Wow, that is awesome. So you're saying it's a deflationary asset?
It is, yes. So there will only ever be 21 billion. That's kind of goes along the same halving schedule for mining as Bitcoin's, meaning every 4 years. But we started with a higher starting point, 5,000 instead, and we also have faster blocks, so 1 minute blocks, and therefore it ends up being 21 billion at the end instead of 21 million with an M.
Got it. So it's 21 billion, but that's shrinking as these names are created on this.
Yep.
Wow.
Growing as people are still mining and shrinking as people are creating assets. Yep.
But overall capped fixed supply.
Yep. Will be capped. Yep. Is capped, but they're still issuing. Yep.
Okay. So that is exciting. I guess the question is, one of the things that drew me to this asset to want to learn more about it is its proof of work. And those are not on the SEC's radar whatsoever. They're calling those digital commodities like Bitcoin. So is this decentralized? Is it immutable? Does it have the benefits of Bitcoin essentially?
It does. In fact, the code was originally from Bitcoin. The guy who came up with the concept ideas was the former executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation. You may have heard him, Bruce Fenton. So it was kind of his ideas. He was on the board of Medici Ventures, which is a VC firm within Overstock, and then Overstock Medici Ventures paid for all the development. So there was no fundraising, there was no pre-mine, there was no dev set aside, there was no, everybody started on like day one, which was actually Bitcoin's 9th birthday. We launched it on Bitcoin's 9th birthday on January 3rd, 2018. and it's been kind of mining since then. So all the coins have been mined into existence, and that continues today. One thing we did try to do is we wanted not a big fan of ASICs, which tends to concentrate mining into like big warehouses or places where there's cheap power. We wanted anybody with a video card to be able to just flip on their machine, have a fair shot along with everybody else. And so we had a specific algorithm that modified every block. So it was very, very difficult to build an ASIC. There was an ASIC built. It was very inefficient, but eventually we changed the algorithm to use every part of a video card, just all the memory, all the processing power, everything. It was a derivative of ETH hash. We actually prog pow, and then we made some tweaks to make caw pow, which is Ravencoin's mining algorithm. But since it uses all of a video card, if you were to make an ASIC, it would look a lot like a video card and have a lot of the economics and purchasing cost of a video card, not a customized machine. So we have a very, very, very distributed, I would argue, more distributed as far as like lots more players or whatever than Bitcoin from that perspective. And that was one of our early goals.
So it's a lot easier to mine than Bitcoin, you're saying?
Yeah. Just anybody who has like a gaming card, 3080 or something like that, 2080, 1080, you can mine and be competitive, especially if you're using your parents' power.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. So then I guess what makes Bitcoin special is the fact that supposedly no one can ever change the code. Is that how Ravencoin is? Can it ever be altered again?
I'm not going to say never, but what it requires is similar to what Bitcoin requires, and Bitcoin code has changed over time, right? They just recently added Taproot, and they handled some errors. They even slipstreamed some stuff, to miners and things like that. That blogs about that. Anyway, the code is not immutable, but it is extraordinarily difficult to change the consensus rules. Anybody can tweak it and change the UI or whatever, but the consensus rules would require that all the miners change. So it does have that same protection level that the Bitcoin does.
Got it. And about how many miners are there currently?
Hard to say. There's a whole bunch of mining pools, and you'd have to count up the miners in each mining pool to figure that out. So I don't know. One of the other problems we have, if it was we wanted to change it, one of the difficulties is we're not even sure of all the mining pools or the languages that they speak. And so that kind of communication thing, early on, we were able to make some tweaks to add assets and things like that. It's kind of gotten to the point where we're changing it would be extraordinarily difficult.
So it's decentralized, great tokenomics. It has a real use case. I guess why would people choose Ravencoin to create an asset over a different alternative?
Glad you asked that question. So one of the big things is built into. First, it's super easy. So it's built into the core. You just basically say, "This is my name. Is it available?" Oh, yes, it is. Great. How many do you want? From 1 to 21 billion. You choose. Type in a number. Do you want that number to be locked? Meaning you cannot. You as the owner of the coin, you can actually lock it and say, "Okay, there's only going to be 1 million." And never any more, or you can leave it reissuable. So you can add more up to the sum total of 21 billion, but only you as the issuer could do that. You add metadata, so information about it. That information goes into IPFS. I don't know if you're familiar with that. If not, you are great. For your listeners, it's basically a way to store a file by its hash. So you submit the file, it gives you back a hash, which means that the hash is the name. So you can't tweak the data without the name of it changing. So that hash, which goes on chain, references that data, right? And that data can be a file full of folders. It can be a PDF, it can be a movie, whatever you want. But that ends up being the metadata, telling you what the token is about. If you make it not reissuable, then that metadata can never change. If you make it reissuable, you can update it, but the old one will always be there. So you can see that it's been changed, and a history of its change would be on chain. But that's probably the most important one. Is one thing two things that differentiate it from ERC20 or any of the smart contracts is your name is guaranteed. whereas on ERC20 or any of these, there's not a name registry. So you can name something the same, and it's really up to the user or the website or some way to figure out that that is the actual instance of the contract that is the real thing and not a fake version. So that's something that unique name is important. And then the immutable metadata. And that ERC20s tried to do that, but they end up doing it with the URL. And there's some papers out there that showed somebody who created an NFT that actually was a different image depending on which operating system you viewed it through, and things like that, just because you can tweak that URL. So the immutable metadata and the name is probably the most, like compelling or unique reason that you would use Ravencoin over really any of the smart contract platforms.
Okay, so you can create coins. Can you create NFTs or any other sort of digital asset?
You can. We have a specific thing, so we call them original. So there's only one of them. So if you create a root asset, and let's make up a name, Bob, right? So you create a unique asset named Bob. You can then create NFTs under Bob as Bob, hashtag, and then whatever characters you want, right? And so now you have a unique name. You can think of the Bob or that root asset being the provenance or where the NFT came from. And so only the owner of Bob, who actually owns a special token called Bob exclamation mark, only that owner of that token can create Bob hashtag, whatever they want. Or let's see, a better name would be like Art, right? If you could grab the Art root token, Art hashtag and the name, that combined name has to be unique, guaranteed unique, right? I mean, no other person could have Art hashtag in that unique name. You could make an Art hashtag something else, but that's the way NFTs work. And then the IPFS works the same way, and again has this ability to do NFTs that are, where the provenance came from, meaning it was the owner of the root asset. And then also the data, meaning the picture or the 3D model or whatever's behind it, is also immutable, so that can't be changed, which isn't true on a lot of the other NFTs.
In this crypto winter, everything has fallen. I mean, you have biotechnology stocks crashing, you have electric stocks crashing. So everything is crashing. That's the price action environment we're in, obviously, yep. Especially crypto early stage assets. I guess my question for you is, because this is kind of like a show about investing, what appreciation. What is the vision for how the token can eventually increase in price over time?
Yeah, so and I think the premise is not necessarily like, hey, we're trying to make it increase over time. What we're trying to build is a platform that works and acts like Bitcoin, in that it's immutable, can't change, is completely open source, that people can build on for free, that there isn't any kind of central entity that is kind of in charge of it, that it kind of operates, meaning people just choose to run the software and it creates this emergent network that everyone can use. That's the goal. If price goes from that, fine, but there's actually a few people out there that are kind of work on that other stuff. There's Raven Angel and things like that. These other groups that are kind of like, they would just be people that like talk about Ravencoin, help Ravencoin, things like that. But there isn't a marketing budget. There isn't a, that kind of thing. So I think the price appreciation will be a little bit more organic than it might be if you just have somebody coming in, this is the greatest thing ever kind of thing.
Right. So, right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I guess it's built in similar to Bitcoin, just the supply demand fundamentals alone are organic enough to try to lift prices over time, I would think.
Yeah. So it will depend on, whether people are using it. It will depend on they will get more and more scarce as the halving is the same 4-year schedule. We're just 9 years behind Bitcoin. So we're kind of we've done one halving. So it's now 2,500 Raven per block, and then it'll be 1,250. And so that halving schedule will continue until, the amount coming out, is lower than interest rates or,
Great. And one actually really important question, because this asset is harder to buy than others. Where if someone is looking to purchase it, like where would you recommend they go for that?
Yeah. So I'll give you, Binance has it. So Binance US have it. That's probably the bigger one, higher volumes. There's also on Ravencoin Foundation, there's a fair number of just swap sites. So if you have Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, you want to swap it for that, you can use any of those swap sites where it's just sort of you send this, you get this back, tells you the ratio. So that's one. You can mine it just if you have a fast video card. There's lots of mining pools. They all have instructions on how to mine it, right? And just for listeners, mining is basically taking your computer as a video card and running a program when you're not using your computer. That's it. It's not a difficult thing. You follow some instructions and then you just flip it on at night, and Ravencoin will go into the address that you've specified or created. So it's not a difficult thing. It's just running a program and then just that's it. So I guess that's probably where I'd start. Yeah. And then if you want other sites besides Binance, just go to CoinMarketCap, go to search for Raven and hit markets, and there's a whole bunch. There's 100 options where you can just trade for different things.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that data. Is there anything else you want to share? And also, where can people go to find you?
Yeah, so to find, there's a whole bunch of sites. I've mentioned a couple. I mean, Raven Angels. Easiest way to find all those sites, though, is just ravencoin.foundation, and it has just a list. It's not a pretty site, but it basically is spokes out to lots and lots of different places, very little of which is run by anybody kind of originally associated. It's just, it's explorers and asset explorers and mining sites and swap sites and exchanges and just all kinds of stuff. Like it's categorized, but it's not pretty. That's one. Ravencoin.org and ravencoin.com, which are the same website. They give you some of that, but they're a little bit more focused on like the core code and kind of the original stuff that was built, and sort of just the facts, ma'am. It's not going out to sites that would do any kind of promotion or anything like that. tronblack.medium.com is my blog. A lot of that, I would call it, say 85-90% is writings about Ravencoin, kind of from its inception and beginnings through kind of some of the challenges and stuff that happened. So there's probably 60, 70 articles specifically about Ravencoin. So those are probably the places I would start. Also, I think either ravencoin.foundation or ravencoin.com will point you to the social medias. So there's Telegram, there's Discord, there's Reddit, there's Twitter, stuff like that. You can branch out to that. None of it's run by any of the original people. All that's moderated and done by other people that are moderating and just have channels and stuff related to Ravencoin.